Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that helps you get past the headlines, really dig into the important stuff from different sources so you can get informed fast. And today we're asking something I think, well, it probably resonates with a lot of us. What's education really for? Is it just about, getting ahead, helping our own kids succeed? Or is there something, maybe something deeper, something for all of society? We're going to explore a really practical but also pretty profound answer today. And it comes from maybe an unexpected source. Won Buddhism, a spiritual tradition from Korea that's about a century old. The core idea we're diving into is, well, it sounds simple, but it's actually quite radical, that an education of other people's children.
Yeah, and well, Buddhism, it's interesting because it's very humanistic. Its founder, Sotasan,
Hmm.
wasn't focused on just, abstract spirituality. His whole thing was applying spiritual wisdom to solve actual real-world problems like the ones we face every day. And he really wanted to break down these sort of artificial barriers we put up. Central to that was this idea we have to get past my kid versus your kid.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
he argued that educating every child, that's a collective job. It's on all of us.
Okay, so that's what we're unpacking in this deep dive. We'll look at why this idea even came about, what its core principles are, and maybe most importantly, how we can actually use this, like timeless wisdom today in our own communities to build something, I guess, more enlightened, more compassionate. Let's get into it. So, this core idea, educating everyone's children, where did it start? What was Soda-san actually seeing that made him think this way? It seems pretty revolutionary.
It really came from looking hard at what holds society back. Just
Yeah.
direct observation. There's this foundational text in Won Buddhism, the Jongjin, and it puts it very clearly. It says something like, when educational institutions are limited, or their spirit does not transcend the boundaries of self and others, the world's civilization is delayed.
Wow. Delayed, that's a strong word. And it's not just about having schools, but the spirit behind them.
Exactly. It's that distinction that's key. If the spirit is narrow, just focus on my own, my family, my group.
What happens then? How does that actually delay civilization? What's the real world effect?
Well, think about it. If your focus is only in your immediate circle, you end up building these invisible walls around yourself. And that us versus them thinking in education, it literally slows down human progress. It stifles innovation because ideas don't flow freely. Knowledge gets trapped. You get these little islands of progress, sure, but the vast majority are left behind. It's a recipe for collective stagnation, really.
Okay, I see. Isolated islands instead of a connected whole. And the Zhongzin offers a solution then.
It does, a pretty expansive one. It continues, saying something like, therefore, we must expand educational institutions and transcend the boundaries of self and others
Okay, transcend those boundaries.
to promote the world's civilization and to enable all our fellow human beings to live in a paradise.
Paradise.
Yeah,
That's a big promise, a huge outcome.
it is. And it makes you ask, what does it really mean to transcend the boundaries of self and others? It's not just like a policy proposal.
Hmm.
In Won Buddhism, this is actually a spiritual practice, a deep one. It connects directly to their main symbol, the one circle image. Il One Sang, they call it.
The circle.
Yeah, just a simple circle. But it represents the ultimate truth, the interconnectedness of everything. The idea is that we're all just different points on the same circle. There's no fundamental separation, no real me versus you or my child versus your child when you get down to it.
Hmm.
We're all part of this one seamless reality.
That's a powerful image. All points on the same circle. It definitely reframes the whole my kid, your kid thing. Can you maybe give us an analogy, something to help visualize it beyond the philosophy?
Sure, yeah. Think about a garden. Imagine you pour all your time and energy into just one flower, your flower. You water it, feed it, fuss over it. But you completely ignore the rest of the garden plot. What happens?
The rest of the garden probably goes downhill. Weeds, bad soil.
Exactly. The soil gets depleted, weeds choke everything out, maybe pests move in, and
Yeah.
eventually, all that neglect around your prized flowers starts to affect it too. Doesn't matter how much individual care you gave it, its health is tied to the whole garden.
Because it's all one ecosystem.
Right.
Precisely.
But now flip it. What if you care for the whole garden? You nurture the soil everywhere, water all the plants, pull weeds for everyone, then what happens?
Everything thrives, including your original flower, probably even better.
Right. The whole ecosystem becomes vibrant and healthy, and
Uh-uh.
all the flowers flourish, including yours.
Mm.
Society is that garden. Our children, they're the flowers. And this principle, it's asking us to be gardeners for all of them, to nurture the whole system, because our own well-being, our own kids' futures, they're tangled up with everyone else's.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so to really get how radical this was, let's step back to Soda-san's time, early 20th century Korea. What was he actually seeing? What were the specific problems in education that made him say, we need a whole new approach?
Well, he identified these five main uh, deficiencies, as he called them. And what's kind of startling is how familiar they sound today. First, he saw a real lack of societal commitment. Basically, society and the government just weren't invested in education for everyone. It wasn't a priority.
You can definitely see parallels today, like debates over funding public schools, right?
Yeah.
Is it a core investment or something else?
Exactly. It often gets treated like an optional expense rather than, the foundation for everyone's future, not just for those who can pay for private options.
Okay, what was the second deficiency?
Systemic discrimination. This was huge. Education was often flat out denied to women, to the poor. It was seen as a privilege for a select few, definitely not a basic right.
And again, the echoes today. Achievement gaps based on race or income or where you live. Access isn't equal.
Sadly, no. Think about kids in poorer neighborhoods versus kids in wealthy ones. The resources just aren't the same. It's a modern version of that same old deficiency. It perpetuates inequality.
Right. What else did he see?
Third was a lack of social responsibility. Even the people who did get an education, they often didn't use their knowledge to help society. Education became like a private possession, something for personal gain, not something to, lift everyone up.
It's a really important point. Education isn't just for the individual. And number 4.
Poor communication. Back then, there wasn't widespread media, no easy way to share information. So good educational ideas, innovative methods, they often just stayed local. They couldn't spread.
Sounds a bit like the digital divide today, doesn't it? Where access to information, to quality online resources, isn't evenly spread.
It's very similar. It traps good ideas and reinforces those existing inequalities.
Okay, and the 5th one, you said it might be the most critical.
Yeah, I think so. He called it deep-seated self-centeredness. This was about how resources were used or not used. The wealthy would invest heavily, but only in their own family line. And if they didn't have a direct heir, sometimes those resources were just wasted or sat idle. Meanwhile, the poor, who desperately wanted to educate their children, had absolutely no way to do it.
Creating a cycle.
A vicious cycle. Educational poverty trapping families for generations. No way up.
So putting it all together, Sotae-san saw this world just stuck. Held back by inequality, by selfishness, by this really narrow view of who education was for. And universal education, this idea of caring for all children, wasn't just a nice thought for him. It was the essential fix, the way to fundamentally change things.
Okay, so if those were the problems Sotae-san saw, how do we actually do something about it today? How do we put this philosophy into action? Because you said the scripture, the Yonjan, it doesn't just diagnose, it gives us a plan, right?
Yeah.
It even says something like, we who have met this opportunity where these deficiencies are being eliminated, that feels like it's talking straight to us now. We live in a time with, incredible tools for connection and change. So how do we grab this opportunity? You mentioned a 3-part guide.
Yeah, it's pretty practical. The first part is about individual responsibility. It's a direct call to each of us. The text says we should, whether we have children or not, assist all educational institutions. That's pretty clear.
Assist all of them.
And if circumstances permit, educate a few individuals as if they were our own. As if they were our. That's a high bar.
It is. It means thinking beyond just like charitable giving. It's about seeing that kid struggling with math next door, or the student needing a mentor, and feeling a genuine responsibility. Maybe it's tutoring, maybe it's donating to a scholarship fund, not just out of pity, but because you know that child success strengthens your whole community. It's an investment in your shared future. It's about active, personal, local support, really showing up for kids who aren't biologically yours.
That really changes the motivation, doesn't it? From duty to
Yeah.
connection. Okay, what's the second part? It's not just on individuals, right?
Right. The second part is societal responsibility. The scripture says the state and society should also establish educational institutions widely and actively implement education.
So building systems.
Exactly. This is about advocating for good public schools, well-funded, safe, inspiring schools in every neighborhood, regardless of the zip code. It means championing public education as like the bedrock of democracy. It's where we build our future citizens. It's about pushing for policies and structures that give every single kid a genuinely fair shot, leveling that playing field, because that benefits everyone in the long run.
Makes sense. Individual action and systemic change. What's the third part?
The third is cultural responsibility. This one's really interesting. We need to build a culture that actually celebrates this kind of universal care for education. The text says those who practice this should be recognized and rewarded for their public service.
Recognized and rewarded. How?
It's about changing the story we tell ourselves as a society. Who do we admire? Who do we hold up as heroes? We often celebrate billionaires or athletes or celebrities, and that's fine. But what about the teacher who pours their heart and soul into their students, day after day, often for low pay?
Or the volunteer librarian.
Exactly. The person running the after-school program, the community member, funding a local scholarship quietly. This teaching says we need to actively honor these people. Recognize their work not just as nice, but as vital public service that strengthens the whole community. We need to shift our cultural values to really see these gardeners of humanity as the crucial contributors they are.
So, wrapping this up, this whole philosophy, educating others' children, it's really a call for a big shift in perspective. Moving away from a narrow, self-focused view of education towards something much bigger, more compassionate, more collective.
Yeah, it argues that investing in all children, tending to that whole garden we talked about, isn't just morally right. It's the most practical way to build a better world. More advanced, more peaceful, more prosperous. For everyone.
And it strikes me that even though this comes from Won Buddhism, from Korea a century ago, the message feels completely universal.
Absolutely. It's not just a Korean idea. It's a fundamental truth about interconnectedness. It's an invitation, really, an invitation to see every child's potential is linked to our own and to invest in their future like it is our own. Because, well, ultimately it is.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to mull over today, something to really chew on.
What would our neighborhoods, our country, what would the whole world actually look like if every one of us truly deeply believed that every single child's success was our own success?